Deconverted Man here. You know what I love? I love when people use illogic to try to justify illogic. I love it. It's wonderful. It's so much fun to have. I'm letting that go to voicemail. Oh man, no, it's on playback on voicemail check mode. No, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. No, I'm gonna hear it.
This is outright lie, leaving a message because apparently you just don't want to talk to me anymore. I understand. I might be a little bit annoying. I might not be that fun to talk to. But you used to always talk with me, and now you hang up on me. You don't want to talk with me. You don't even answer anymore and leave me to your voicemail. Are you seeing somebody else? Are you seeing one of the other arguments? Are you seeing argument fragrance? Oh, it's that straw man hussy, isn't it? I bet it's that straw man hussy. I thought we had something together. You...
Hang up. There. Okay, so, yeah. When did we have a relationship? Why is Outright Lie obsessed with me? Insane Outright Lie, who's now a weasel or ferret. How did that happen? Not really sure. Oh, it was on guest mode. Oh, I see. Link in the description below. Alright, so anyways, what was I saying? I don't know. Back to the video. Oh wait, I haven't even started the video. Here's the video!
I've recently watched a video by Atheism in which he outlined what he thought were the top 5 philosophical failures of Christian apologetics. In this video, I'm going to respond point by point to his assertions.
We now have failure number 2, which is an inability to grasp the burden of proof. Of all the failures I've encountered in religious apologetics, I think this one has to be the most frustrating. Because honestly, this idea is so simple and obvious that it boggles all comprehension when people fail to get it. But basically, all this principle states is that the person making the positive claim is responsible for justifying that claim. Yet for some crazy reason, Christian apologetics habitually fight against this idea.
So what he's basically saying here is that until God can be demonstrated to exist via empirical evidence, he can assume that God is unlikely to exist.
And now it's time for Deconverted Man Loses It! No, oh baby, no, no, you are wrong again. No, that's not the point he was making at all. You missed it completely. Justifying his complaint about the failure to grasp how this works because you don't grasp how it works. And now, back to the video!
By affirming the null, that means he thinks he's justified in believing that God is unlikely to exist, or simply that he doesn't exist. So in effect, he's saying that absence of evidence is evidence of absence. Despite what he claims, it is actually positive evidence, and not simply absence of evidence which allows one to affirm the null or conclude that something doesn't exist. For instance, I can conclusively determine that as I'm writing the script for this video, there's no elephant in my room.
Again with the elephant? What the bleep? I just did a thing with the elephant. It's the same thing as before. Oh, it's the same guy that I did last time. That's why. This is probably why I try to pick a different video to do. The one time that I didn't, and like I did a whole series on this one person, like nobody cared. I even have it in a playlist, and like no one cares. Still, to this day, no one cares about Brainouty and her logical fallacies. And that one she really irritated me. She had so many fallacies. Oh, sorry. I'm okay now. Anyways, no! No! Because God isn't an elephant. God's invisible or not seeable. It's not something that you can see or sense with your senses other than inside your brain sometimes, I guess. So, here we go, not understanding the burden of proof and how it works, which is exactly what he was saying. So, demonstrate that I have an elephant or do not have an elephant in my room. How could you do that? You're not here. You don't see my room. You have no way to do that. See, that's what we're trying to explain to you and people like you, is you can't prove what I said was true or untrue. So therefore, the burden is on me to prove that it is true or untrue. And this whole misunderstanding of how the burden of proof works kind of justifies this whole you don't understand the burden of proof thing.
Pieces of positive evidence I may use is that an elephant couldn't even fit through my door without completely breaking it. Another line of evidence may be that as I look around in my room and observe no elephant, it is reasonable to conclude that since an elephant is a large physical object, I should have observed it in my room. Thus, absence of evidence paired with the fact that I should have seen a large physical object in my room provides positive evidence of the unlikeliness of a large elephant in my room. The positive evidence is that it is impossible not to observe a large physical object in my room if there is one present.
But the elephant is not God. See, the elephant is empirical. The elephant is investigatable. Why not just talk about God? Just talk about God. Just put God here in this equation rather than the analogy of the elephant. Let's not argue to and from analogy. Let's just keep consistent and see if this works. Alright, so I'm going to use my awesome drawing skills to draw God, which I'm envisioning as a smiling cloud sort of thing. But that's not what God looks like, because God doesn't look like anything. So that idea has to go away. Okay, now here's God. At least the word God, but where's God? I can't even draw it for you because I don't have an example of God to draw for you. So, there is no way to see it or not see it because it's not a thing that is seen or unseen, apparently, making it completely unfalsifiable, and therefore something that whoever claims that it exists would need to give empirical or some sort of proof for. I mean, if not empirical proof, something. How about a test? Nope, no test? Okay. What else is there? If we don't have empirical evidence, we don't have a test that we can run, and we can run over and over again, what does that leave us with? How can you shoulder the burden of proof if you don't have those things? Well, you could give a logically coherent argument, but that wouldn't prove it. It would just mean it was something logical, that's reasonable to conclude that's logical, but it wouldn't prove that it's a thing. So, what do you have to offer then? Oh, right. Nothing. Right. So, yeah. So the elephant was a good idea, cause elephants we can prove and test and we can know about, but God, yeah, there's nothing to work with here, is there?
Absence of evidence alone doesn't grant me that freedom. Positive evidence together with absence of evidence does. To understand the distinction, let's use another example.
No, I think I will stick with the example I have of God, which I have no example of. I'll just use the cute cloud thing that I'm calling God as my example of God.
Let's keep the absence of evidence constant, but let's take away the positive reason. I have no physical evidence whatsoever that there's an elephant in the city of, say, 500,000 people that I live in.
Alright, I'll stick with your thingies, even though I don't know if they are real thingies or not, but I'll just pretend like they are for the sake of this thingy that I'm doing. Thingy, stop saying thingy. So I see no evidence of God in the city that I live in with however many people that there are. I don't even know if it's really technically a city or a suburb. But whatever the bleep I mean, don't see any evidence of God. Okay. With you so far.
I have exactly the same amount of physical evidence for an elephant in my room as an elephant in my city. 0 in both cases.
Alright, I looked around my room just now. No God. And I can't look around the city right now, but as far as I'm aware, no God there either.
But now I'm not justified in believing that there's no elephant in my city, because now we have taken away the positive reason for justifying the belief. The fact that now, as I look around me and see no elephant, would at best be a nominal reason for disbelief, and more likely it would be an unjustified reason, because looking around in my immediate surroundings doesn't mean I should have seen this physical object. Thus, removing a positive reason from the knowledge that there is absence of evidence strips the absence of evidence of its epistemic force or strength. It would be ridiculous to attempt to justify non-existence based on absence of evidence alone.
Okay, so you're saying that just because we don't see God in our room or in the city doesn't mean that there isn't a God. Similarly, just because we don't see the elephant in your room or in the city doesn't mean that there's not an elephant in your room or in the city. Okay, sure, that works. Wait, that doesn't work. Oh well, keep going.
At the very most, I can hold an agnostic position in the 50-50 range, but from this position, I cannot be highly critical of the position that there is an elephant in the city. So ironically, this is one of the biggest shortcomings of YouTube atheist philosophy, because some of them actually think that absence of evidence can be used to justify the belief that God is unlikely to exist.
So, okay, there's no evidence of God in my room. And that is enough to justify that God's not in my room. Like the elephant. There's no evidence of the elephant in my room. And not just that there's no evidence, but also there's opposite evidence that there's an elephant in my room. Just like there's opposite evidence that there isn't a God in my room. Even though God isn't like the elephant. I'm just tripping over this analogy that you've set up here. Now, in the city, okay, so we go to the city. Let's just say that someone said there is no elephant in the city. We look Google and we see that there are no zoos. Okay, well, there's no zoos, so it'd be highly improbable that there's an elephant in the city. So we call animal trainers, we call shelters, we call all around the city of places that we would suspect an elephant to be. And we take months and months and months scoring every nook and cranny of the city that would be big enough to house an elephant. And we do not find an elephant. Oh, well, see, the elephant was in the petting zoo that came through the city, and now it's just left the city. So there was an elephant here, and we just missed it. Okay? But there isn't an elephant here now. Well, you don't know that. There could be a petting zoo in the city. So we could always just do that. We could always just put the burden a little bit further back, which is known as moving the goalpost. We could always just do that. Well, the elephant's in the city. It's where we haven't looked yet. Just like your missing sock. It's the exact place you haven't looked yet. That's where it is. You've looked everywhere, but you missed that one spot, and that's where it was. So, great. Back to square one. So, how about this? If you say that there's an elephant in the city, then you freaking show me that there's an elephant in the city. You tell me about the petting zoo. You tell me where the bleep it is. And we can go there and verify that it's there. And we can take pictures and video. And bam! You're done. I'm done. We're happy. We went to the petting zoo. Alright? Do that with God. No? No, not going to do that, are you? Nope. Okay, moving on.
It can't. Only positive evidence can be used to justify that position. Let's continue.
Wait, no! We have positive evidence that there isn't a God. Because there isn't any evidence that there is. Okay, so here's the thing. We have to kind of step back a step. We have to know what God is and how you know about God. Because those are important criteria, first and foremost. Because I can posit gobbledygook and say you can't prove that there is no such thing as gobbledygook, and not ever give you the evidence for it. And I can say that gobbledygook is this and that, and you're going to wonder where my proof is that gobbledygook exists. So if I don't have evidence for it, that's kind of a problem. And if I just say, well, but just because you don't see gobbledygook doesn't mean that gobbledygook doesn't exist somewhere beyond your immediate range of viewing. So it becomes completely unfalsifiable, which is the whole reason that Anti-Citizen X, I don't know his reason, but the whole point that Anti-Citizen X was making is the burden is on who made the claim. I made a claim about gobbledygook, I better show you some bleeping gobbledygook. If I don't show you gobbledygook, you are free to be as skeptical as you want about it. There is no, I can only be agnostic, or I can't be that critical of it. That nonsense doesn't exist. That nonsense isn't real. You get to be as skeptical as you want about it, and I would say, if you're not sure, be more skeptical about it, because you haven't been given any reason to think that it's a thing yet.
Number 5, which is a failure to acknowledge the analytic-synthetic distinction. To understand what we mean by this, consider the following propositions. So first we have all bachelors are unmarried, and then we have all bachelors live on Earth. This is a classic demonstration of a principle that philosophers call the analytic-synthetic distinction. While the first proposition is essentially just a statement of meaning and definition built into the English language, the second proposition is a claim about the relationship between actual things in the physical world. So if you want to judge the truth of these claims, you quickly find that the rules are fundamentally different. While the first claim can simply be analyzed from the pure meaning of the words themselves, the second one has to be tested against empirical observation in the real world.
First, I want to point out how this concept of a synthetic-analytic distinction is highly controversial in philosophy. In fact, most philosophers concede that the line between synthetic and analytic propositions is blurred in light of Quine's seminal 1951 essay, The Two Dogmas of Empiricism. However, my main issue is with what follows in Anti-Citizen X's video, namely that the truth of synthetic propositions is contained within their ability to make empirical predictions. This is demonstrably false. First of all, I want to point out a couple of things. A. The statement itself, since it speaks about the truth in the real, physical world, must belong, according to the principle of analytic-synthetic distinction, to the category of synthetic propositions.
Alright, I really don't care if philosophers are actually debating this, because philosophy is not like a rigorous thing like science is, so there's no real standards that I'm aware of in the philosophical fields that would make me care whether or not people are debating this. Anyways, moving on from that point, because everyone's going to attack that point. Oh, you said something bad about philosophy! Hoo-hoo! Yeah, philosophy can suck it. Except for logic. Logic is awesome. Yeah, no, that was a logical fallacy. Feel free to point that out. Moving on to the next point, you can't use the words to disprove the words. This is the whole extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence thing. Well, where's your extraordinary evidence for that? It wasn't an extraordinary claim. It was an ordinary claim. But your very asking for the evidence means that you do require evidence. So, if I say that we need evidence to establish if something is real, you don't say, oh, well, but where's the evidence that that's true? Because either one or the other is going to be true. Either we don't need evidence at all to establish that something true, meaning that what I said is true, as well as anything else I want to say could be true, and we would just have to accept it, or we do need empirical evidence to establish that something is true, except for the case of the rule that explains that that's the case. But if this was how things really worked, That is to say, if we could use words to disprove themselves because they weren't justified within their own system, there's a way out of that. There's a great counterexample, and it's this. This sentence is the only true sentence. All other sentences are made-up lies. Now what? If you can't disprove it because anything you say is a made-up lie. So the only sentence that we could ever utter that would be true would be that sentence, by its very nature. So, no, this is not how things work. Stop trying to deconstruct how things really work in order to prove your God that doesn't have any empirical evidence for it. No, you're not going to do that. Oh, of course not. Back to the video, I guess.
And that is endless struggles with internal consistency and basic coherence. Another great example of just pure inconsistency is the whole idea of God himself. That is to say, we have a powerful personal agent that loves you immensely and desperately wants to build a deep emotional connection with you, while at the same time deliberately hides his very existence from you and won't even hesitate to torture you for all eternity merely for failing to believe in the correct version of him. I'm sorry, Christians, but these are mutually incompatible properties to assign to the same entity.
I don't think these properties are actually mutually incompatible. Let's put this into perspective, shall we? I grant premise 1 of the argument. However, premise 2 is definitely suspect. Namely, let's recall that anti-citizen X believes that the truth of all synthetic propositions, such as the existence of God, lies in their ability to make empirical predictions. Now, not only have I demonstrated that this belief excludes the use of abductive logic, but it also means that anti-citizen X would still not believe in God if God appeared to him in person, because such an appearance, if it was a one-time event, would not produce empirical predictions. Therefore, it would not meet his criteria for belief. In fact, it seems the only God he's actually willing to believe in seems to be some kind of a rather pathetic genie that appears to him or grants requests at the snap of a finger, which leads to empirical predictability. I'm sorry, but that rather pitiful genie or gumball machine, as Tecton TV put it, is not the God that I believe in. I believe in a God who reveals himself through the order and the beauty of the universe, through the fine-tuning of the universe for life, and through our conscious experience and immoral laws. And such a God can be entirely justified through abductive reasoning, because the fine-tuning argument, for instance, can be written in a completely abductive form. And this God is infinitely more powerful, mysterious, personal, and worthy of worship than the rather pitiful genie that anti-citizen X has in mind.
The funny thing is that Jesus broke all the rules that you just talked about. Jesus was empirical. Jesus was testable. Jesus did do miracles repeatedly. Now, fair enough, nobody actually, tested him, but he broke those rules that you just said about God. The God that you believe in is revealed in other ways that Jesus didn't do. The God that you're talking about is revealed, quote-unquote, through nature, through how awesome things are. The God that you're talking about is a God of pattern seeking and assumed agency. The whole fine-tuning thing is again looking for patterns that don't exist, and a complete and total misunderstanding of the words fine-tuning, which has been misapprehended and misused and abused by atheist apologists. Still, this scientific term is not used properly, and thus we have to dismiss and be skeptical of their conclusions whenever they use the word fine-tuning. And I think that there's something rather dishonest with making these words mean something that they don't mean. If we had a different universe than we do today, then life, if it was possible, would be different than it is today. And that's all. No big surprise there. And what the theists have been unable and unwilling to do is to demonstrate, using, let's say, a computer model, that every other combination of a way that a universe could be would fail to produce life, that only this universe could produce life. That would be some sort of data to look at. But they haven't done that. They've just said, well, you know, if this was different, then we wouldn't have life. How do you know? Have you proved that point? No, you haven't. Now, I have zero idea why worship is necessary, required, or even a thing in this equation. Let's just prove that there's a deity first, and then find out whether or not it's worthy of worship. Because that isn't even part of the equation yet. Your straw man of Anti-Citizen X completely and utterly misses the point. He's saying, look, you say that God is loving. You say that God has a lot of power. Therefore, I expect this following to be true. That it would let me know that it existed. It hasn't done that. Therefore, it is not loving, and or it doesn't have that power. In either case, it doesn't exist in the way that you just posited. And your response is to strawman and say, well, even if it did do that, you still wouldn't believe in it. But that's not the point. The point is, first and foremost, God could demonstrate itself in a way that would prove itself to Anti-Citizen X, or anyone else for that matter. It could give us enough to go on. In fact, it would know exactly what would prove it's God to every single individual on the face of the earth, because it knows all that. And it hasn't done that. It hasn't shown up to say hi. And your excuse is, well, even if it didn't, that wouldn't prove it. Yes, it would, because it would know what it needs to do to prove it. Jeez, Louise. Kind of a sneeze. For the love of humanity and all that is rational and logical, get it through your head. God, if it exists, is not one of these attributes that you put onto it. Either it doesn't care about me, or humanity in general, or it doesn't have the power to demonstrate that, and or it doesn't have the knowledge of how to do so in such a way that it would prove itself to me and every other human. So we have, 33% of the world that are Christians. And within that, an even smaller percent that believes in the correct version of God. So those are the only ones that are getting saved. Those are the only ones that aren't going to get screwed. Everyone else is going to get screwed. That's not a loving, caring deity. That's a deity that doesn't care about everyone else. Well, but see, they're just not looking at it right, or whatever other excuse you want to put on there. What other shifting of the goalposts? What other excuse? Because that's all you have are excuses. Well, but God's not a gumball. But that's not the sort of God that I believe in. But you missed the point completely. God could demonstrate itself to all humanity in such a way that none of us would be confused, that none of us would be unconvinced, that we would all know beyond doubt that it was a particular sort of God. If it has these powers and ability, and it cares about us, and it wants a relationship, it would know that us believing, actually we wouldn't believe anymore, we would absolutely know that it was real. So us knowing that it was real is a prerequisite to having a relationship. Believing that something is real, for me, isn't good enough. I don't need to believe in something if I have proof of something. And I don't want to have to believe in anything. I want to know that it's real. And I need certain things to do that. And God should know that. So, why can't you comprehend that? I really don't know. I really don't get that. Logic can't tell me why your brain isn't processing this right. Psychology might be able to. It might be the whole cognitive dissonance thing. Because you desperately want to believe in God. And you do believe in God. And you don't want to stop believing in God. I did. I stopped believing in God. And it was a difficult process to go through for me. For others, it might not be as hard. For some, it might be harder. And there might be some whose brains are wired in such a way that they literally can't stop believing in God. And I don't know whether that's the case or not with you or other people that will be listening to this, but I would want them to challenge this concept of God and try to see if they can not believe in it. But only if that makes sense. Because I don't want them to just stop believing because I told them to. I want them to be intellectual about it. Because that's how I got here. See, faith is different. Faith is, do you believe that Jesus is God? Yep, I do. Okay, you're in. That is what faith is about. It's about saying that something is true with zero proof that it is true. And so Anti-Citizen X makes these different lists of different things that he notices that theology or apologists fail at. And you proceed to fail at every single thing that you cover. Way to not defend your points. Your logic is lacking. Honestly, seriously lacking. I listened to you. I saw your graphs. Those aren't right. You can't defend illogic with moral logic. Why would you want to argue against the burden of proof at all? Why would you want to change that to something else, to strawman somebody's position? That's not... You don't need to do that. Do you have evidence or not? If you have evidence, then give us that evidence. Let's just say look around in a certain special way, because that's more logical fallacies. Give us the actual evidence. It's not fine-tuning, because that's not what you think it is. You keep saying these words, but they're not what that you think that they mean. They are of the. If there is no evidence, then just admit that all it is faith. And until we have the facts, we're not going to accept faith. Because we don't need faith. We don't want faith. We want facts. And God, if it exists, isn't giving us the facts that we need to know that it exists. Forget about the whole relationship thing. Forget about the whole worship thing. I can't do either of those things until I know it is a thing that I can do those things to. There's a prerequisite here. Okay? Alright, so let's look back at the entire video. From start to finish, we don't have any empirical evidence given. We don't have any repeatable tests given. We're told that the reason why is because God isn't a gumball machine. Okay, so those are off the plate. Those are off the table. Those are off whatever the bleep they need to be off of. That leaves a logically coherent argument. We're not given that either. So we've got nothing. Don't have the evidence. Don't have the test. Don't have a logically coherent argument. And unless and until we have, at the very least, a logically coherent argument, we have to continue to be skeptical of the conclusion.